Wind from the north it was blowing. It was cold, but inside old one the song, ruins. There were mountains, this is what came next. Breeze of the sea, salt of the forest, moss the smell of, and forgotten gods, your breath. The sky was carrying, the stars were clear, shaky one with peace. The moon was shining brightly in the face of, as if one eyelash, like, was looking to the world. And that month under, a woman was walking. Ordinary, scardy, it wasn't, but is like he was walking. His name, Fraser, it wasn't, but is like he was looking. His name, there was no, maybe, or its name, with the wind together, was forgotten. He was walking, here, his shoes, there were no feet, was bare. But the soil, him angle, because that land was not his the memory of, was carrying. A lot in the past, this in the lands, one child, she had cried. Maybe it was her. Maybe it was just one, it was a dream. As we walk, the trees, he was moving, as if they knew him, as if one thing to say, they wanted to, but the trees' language, there was no, just wind there was, and wind, everything, he was saying. His name, his pain, his longing, but no one, he couldn't hear it, because everyone was sleeping. That too is sleep, he wanted, but how? In his eyes, night there was, in his heart, winter, in your soul, whereas one poetry, yes, a poetry. A lot used to be a climber, by that poem was written on stones, was engraved, but now that poem, his was inside, and that poem was inside him. Like this, he said, article, traveler, hey, dream, hey, seeker, month in the light of walking, know that to sleep, not your duty, know that dream, to see, not your longing, your duty, the forgotten, remember, your longing, sleepers, wake up. But now, you can sleep, because wind with you, and month, you, is watching. That poem when he heard, he stopped, his feet to the ground buried, his eyes closed, and at that moment a tree spoke, but his voice, there was no, just, I had a feeling. Come, he said, come and listen, because your name in the wind, your story is hidden, in the stars, written, but you, him you forgot. Now, remember. And that woman, that nameless woman, tree under sat on the tree shell. It was cold, but inside, it was hot. It was like a fire was burning in. But fire, it didn't seem to be, just, it was felt. That fire, one thing showed, one dream showed, but the dream, it wasn't, because dream, when you wake up, it would end. This wouldn't end. What he saw, thing one, it was the coast, the north coast, the fjords. They were long, narrow, deep. Rocks there was, grey, hard, forgotten. And those rocks on a child she was sitting. Her hair was yellow, eyes blue, not the darkest of grey. It was a tone. Her hand was a stone, but the stone was ordinary. One stone. It wasn't. On it, one sign there was. That sign, a curd, it was his head. But the wolf's mouth, it was closed. Because that wolf was a day. He was going to talk. But now, not. Now only was waiting. And that child, that stone on the forehead, he put it. And one thing whispered. But the whisper was the wind's, to your voice confused. Nobody didn't hear. But there there was a woman. From afar he was watching. His eyes. He was old, but his tears were not shed, because those tears were day. One poem, it would happen, but now only one. It was longing. And that woman, that child, while watching, a song, he mumbled. But his voice, there was no, just wind there was. And the wind played that song, carried, until that song, now here, this tree under this anonymous woman's in ear, reached. The woman sang that song when he heard, his eyes opened, but now that child, there was no. Just curd-headed stone, and that stone was there, was looking. Woman, stone, he took it. His hand trembled, because that stone was heavy, but its weight was physical. It wasn't. In one thing there was a memory, a dream, maybe a dam, maybe a gift. But what it is, he just didn't know. Knew that this stone, to him, one thing, he was going to say it. But now, not. Now only would wait. And that wait to the dream. But the dream has turned into, it wasn't. Because dream, when you wake up, it would end. This wouldn't end. This would end. It was a journey. But the journey was with feet. It wasn't done. It was done with the eyes, with the ears, with the heart, with the soul. And that woman, on that journey, it started. But before it started, before one thing did, the tree to its shell touched. And like this, he said, I have come. I am the forgotten one to remember. I came. I am the sleepers to wake up. I came. But now I want to sleep too. I want. But it's a dream, not. Because a dream ends when you wake up. Mine never. It won't end. And at that moment, the tree moved, but the leaves not. Its roots. Underground, one thing moved. It was like in underground, it was a river. But water, it wasn't. It was memories. In the past, here lived people. In the past, here cried children. In the past, here dead all of the adults suddenly flowed. And that woman, those memories over. He lay down, his eyes closed, and slept. But he didn't sleep, because sleep, wake up, it meant. He wouldn't wake up. He was just another one on the ground, it would be. Another one at another time. One in the body, but the same in the soul. And that soul, now, like this, he said, O earth, O stone, O wind, here I come and I stayed. I slept, but I didn't wake up, because I'm no more. I am a dream, and dreams
are for the sleepers, watches, and I'm watching. Now you can sleep, because I am my dream.
Woman, he didn't sleep, but his eyes was closed. His soul, another one, was on the ground. His body, a tree under the roots between the soil in your bosom, was stuck. But that body, now one, it was a shell. Inside fire, another one to the ground had moved. That fire, now Arala beyond the stars, under, forgotten one the lake on the shore was burning. Goal water, it was clear, but deep. It was deep, that sky, his inside was disappearing. The moon was disappearing from the water, inside more big. It looked like it was real. The moon was on the ground, in the sky, whereas only one. It was a reflection. The woman was in the lake. To the shore, sat down, his feet. To the water, it was cold, but that coldness touched him. Good came, because that coldness was forgotten. One God's was his breath. Woman into the water, looked at his face, but that face, his, it wasn't. It was very old. It swam. His eyes, her lips were empty, was closed. On his forehead, one sign there was. That sign was Scandinavian. In his language, it was Oda. That means destroyed, silent, empty. That sign, to him one thing was saying, but the voice, there was no, just this, and there was water, one thing showed. The lake in the middle, a stone was rising, the stone on one skeleton. He was sitting, but that skeleton was scary. It wasn't. It was peaceful, because that skeleton was a times one poet. His name Bragi, it wasn't, but it was like a poem was writing, his lips. But his poems were not there, still. It was there, because poems in bone, not in the soul, lives. Woman, that stone, true, walked. Water is his to your chest, much. It came out, but it didn't sink, because water, he knew the water. The pain, he drank water, his tears had carried, and now the water him one thing to give, he wanted, a song. But the song was heard by ear, it was inaudible, with the heart was heard. Woman, stone, before came, skeleton, his head raised, eye pits, it was empty, but inside, one light there was, that light was blue to white, from white, black, it was turning, as if the planet, it was a root. It was like a dream, was the orbit, and that light to the woman looked, and like this, he said, "You came, but you didn't. Let me without forgetting you came. They forgot me, because I wasn't. I was silent. I was stone. I was the lake. I'm in it. Now one poem, listen, but your ears close, because this poetry only dream those who see, hears." And at that moment, the skeleton from your chest, one light came out. Light on water dance, and that dance was a poetry, transformed. But poetry is transformed with words, not with colors, sounds, smells. It was written. The woman wrote that poem. He saw, and in that poem occurred. But the wolf had a mouth, it was closed. Because that wolf was a day he was going to talk. But not now. Now only was waiting. And that wait to the man transformed, man moon in the light of, he was walking, his hair, his eyes were white. It was empty, but in his hand one stone there was. That stone was the woman's, in your hand overflowed,
same stone, same curd head, same silence. Man to woman looked, and like this, he said, "You me, you know me, but you forgot, because I, dream, I wasn't. Accursed you, but you, me. You solved it. Now I am yours, and you are my dream." And at that moment, the man disappeared. Just stone. The stone remained. The woman, he had it in his hand, but now, stone it wasn't. A heart had transformed, but that heart, because that heart was not beating. That day he was going to throw it, but not now. Now only was waiting.
Woman, a stone on the forehead, and put his eyes closed. And at that moment, a sound he heard. But the sound was from outside, not from within. That voice was coming to him like this. He said, "O traveler, O dream seeker, O lake at the bottom light seeing, know that you plus dream you are not, you are God. But forgotten one God, your name is in the wind, your story is hidden in the stones, written, but you forgot. Now remember, and you can sleep, because sleep, wake up, it's not. Sleeping is remembering." Woman, that voice crying when hearing wanted, but tears there was no, because tears, one day, one poem, it would happen. But now only one it was longing, and that longing made him, another took it somewhere. Woman, fire against you was sitting, the fire was blue, it was burning, but it was hot, it wasn't, it was cold. Inside, true attracting a coldness, as if fire its inside gap to fill for was burning, but the void, it was big. The fire was small. The wolf's headstone, woman in the palm of your hand, it was standing. Now stone it wasn't, to skin had transformed, but still it was heavy. Its weight was a memory, a child's memory. A man transformed child, a God transformed the man. Woman had lifted the temple ceiling, there was no sky, but there was a sky had changed. The stars in place, it wasn't. Moon 3 floor, it was big, and ritual on one line there was. That line with a sword, it was drawn, but the sword was made of wood, it wasn't. From the shadow was made, and that shadow was the woman's over, was falling, but fear there was no, just one piece, because that shadow was there. He knew that shadow, own it was a shadow, but it was very before had separated, now back had returned. The temple walls it was ruined, but the walls on articles, there were those writings in the north in your language, it wasn't. In the past spoken one language, but no one didn't know anymore. Just woman, he knew, because that language was in his dream. That language was his name. But the name, it was still not complete. Just one sound, a breath, a hum. That hum now woman's in your ears, it was ringing, but it was uncomfortable. It just didn't work. It reminded me of what? A place, a time, a child, a wolf, a stone. Couldn't stand up, got up fire. A round to return started, slowly. His feet stone was touching, but the stone was old stone. It wasn't. The stone had softened. As if it were soil, it was turning. As if it were turning again. To the forest would transform, but now not. Now only return there was. Return and listen, because fire, one thing was saying. But the voice, there was no. Just one vibration, there was that vibration. The woman to your chest was entering, and there was staying. His heart over was sitting, but the weight, He wasn't doing it. He just reminding me of what happened. He didn't know it would happen, but knew. A while then fire it went out, but it hasn't darkened, because the moon still was there. And the moon now only, it wasn't, behind one another moon had appeared. The second moon, it was small, but more it was bright. And that moon on one trace there was. That trace, a foot it was a trace, but a giant foot trace. Woman that trace, he knew him, because that mark was his, it was in his childhood. It was very used to be in the snow he had walked. At that time, feet, it was small, but the trace, it was big. Now it was the opposite. His feet had grown, the trace had shrunk, but the scar, still it was there. The trace wouldn't be lost, because trace one promise. He had promised. What did he promise? To return. Woman, the temple outside came out. The temple outside, it was a forest, but the forest had changed too. The trees, it was white. There were no leaves, just branches, and those branches were connected to each other. It was touching, but the wind. There was no silence. There was silence, It was the tone. That tone was the woman's. In your ears it was ringing, but it was uncomfortable. It just didn't work. It reminded me of something. A place, a time, a child, a wolf, a stone. Woman to walk started. His feet was naked, but snow, there was no soil. But soil, it was hot, because soil, it knew the soil. His your name, it knew, but the name still, it wasn't said. It was just one letter, it was the beginning. A door, but the door had not been opened. Now only to walk there was, walking and to wait. As we walk, the trees it varied, from white to grey they were turning. Grey, old one, it was colour. It was very old. That colour, stone, it was the colour of the lake. It was the colour of the child. That colour, your eyes, it was the colour. The woman was that colour, because that colour was his, was in it. That colour was in it. It was longing. That colour was his loneliness. But loneliness, now only, it wasn't. Because behind, 1 month there was. In front of him, one trace, he had it in his palm. One heart, and on his forehead, there was a name. But the name wasn't complete. It was just, one was the beginning. A duration then, forest end ended. In front of you one coast there was. The shore was made of stone, but the stone was flat, as if someone by was cut off. The shore at the end, a skeleton was sitting, but the skeleton terrible, it wasn't, it was peaceful, because that skeleton was a times one. He was a poet, but he was a poet. It wasn't, it was just one. She was a listener. Woman skeleton neck sat down. Skeleton his head raised. Eye pits, it was empty, but inside one light, there was. That light woman inside, it was light, the same light, same dream, same longing.
Woman, skeleton looked and, like this he said, I came, but without forgetting I came, they forgot me, but I didn't forget. Now one thing to remember, I want to remember, but not just, to know what I am, where I come from. I came, where I'm going. Skeleton reply didn't, because skeleton language, but his hand was not there. There was, his hand lifted and woman's on the forehead touched. At that moment, the third letter appeared, A. Now on the forehead letters was oath da, but still. One meaning there was no, just one, it was a door, but the door to be separated it had begun, because skeleton head bowed, and eyelash in the pits light went out, but the light didn't go, just woman's into entered, and there would remain. Because that light was it was the key. The key opened the door, would open, but now not. Now only to wait, there was.
Woman rose from the shore left. Behind him he didn't look, because behind, now one thing, there was no. Just in front there was. In front of him, one path there was. The road was made of stone, but the stone had softened as if it was soil. It would turn into a forest, would transform, but now not. Now only to walk there was. Walking and wait, and on the forehead fly with letters to walk. Woman. As we walk stone path, it has become thinner. Now feet only. Order to the stones. Every stone was pressing, a little more softening, a little more. It was getting warmer. The smell of earth was rising. But this soil, old soil, it wasn't. This soil, on top rain fallen, one the grave. It was the smell, was intimidated, forgotten one thing. Woman, that thing he didn't remember but was feeling. Path end when it ends, in front one cave appeared. The cave mouth was closed, but door it was not just big one, it was a rock. The rock was round, seemed to touch. It was cold, but inside, one vibration there were. It seemed like there were a lot slow, throwing one heart, it was like. Every day one times, maybe a year one times. Woman, when you touch, he trembled. Inside, one thing passed. Breath, it was like, but old. One breath inside January smell there was. In it child breath there was. The woman took that breath. He recognized me because that breath is so before own was his breath. On your forehead, letters again moved. Oat glittered. D trembled. A silent remained. Woman waited. What to do? He didn't know because will do one thing. There was no, just to wait. There was, while waiting, remember. For a while, then the rock moved, silently, sideways record. None sound, it didn't come out, but its hot, one wind it blew. In stone dust there was. In it old one January smell there was. In it one child's breath there was a woman inside my name through. The cave intra. It was empty, but the void was dark. It wasn't. It was empty. Inside, when you look, own your face saw, but this face, present face, it wasn't. Childhood, it was his face. His eyes, it was big and empty. His mouth was closed, but a thing to say wanted. Emptiness voice swallowing. Woman walked. His feet soft to the ground pressed. Cave it was long, but length. It was not felt, because with every step, one thing, the walls were changing, was moving. The air was getting heavy, but the weight was on the body, not to your soul was collapsing.
A while later, cave expanded. In front of one room appeared. The room in the middle, one stone. There was a stone, round. On it, signs. There were those signs, north to your tongue. It didn't look like it. It was older. It was softer. As if it was blown by the wind. It was written. The woman, stone, next sat down. In the palm of his hand, heart stone took it out. Now, stone, it wasn't. To the skin had transformed. But still, it was heavy. Its weight was, it was a memory.
The woman, he put the stone on the ground. The stone is round, stone over, he sat down. He sat down perfectly. It was as if he was sitting there. It belonged. It was as if it had always been there. That moment, on the forehead, letters again moved. The fourth letter appeared. It was the letter R. Now, on the forehead, letters was Odar, but still was missing. The syllable was not complete. Only were voices, but voices was coming together. Something, it was happening. A name was happening. The stone on the heartstone moved. Slowly, to return started. As it was returning, one sound, it just wasn't taking it off. There was a feeling. That feeling was inside, was filling the gap. It was getting smaller, but it wasn't filling up completely. Because space, a name was waiting. Name, when completed, space, it would close. But then it was different. One thing, it would begin. The woman, this she knew, because stone, him was whispering. Whisper, but there was no meaning. There was meaning in your body. It was ringing inside. One on the ground. Maybe in your heart. Maybe in your bone. Maybe in your dream. A while later, the cave walls, he moved, as if breathing. They took it in, as if they pulled the air. But the air, there was no, just time. There was time had slowed down too. The woman, with his breath, together, was progressing. With every breath, one moment, but the memory was appearing. It wasn't. It was just a feeling, a childhood feeling, a wolf feeling, a stone feeling. Feelings were merging. A name, it was happening, but the name still was missing.
Woman, his head, he raised his eyes, opened, to the stone looked, stone on the signs, it was no longer clear, because signs, his into, it was over. Now with the eye, they were not seen, only they were felt. Woman felt, inside, one thing, he moved, but fear there was not. Just one weight, there was a weight on his shoulders, collapsed. But the shoulders endured, because that weight, it was a memory. The memory is on your shoulders, would move, but the move, its weight wouldn't bury it in the ground. It would just tie it to the ground, to time, to the stone, to the soil. A while later, the cave interchanged, walls disappeared, the place disappeared, just stone. The stone remained in the air, it was standing still, but there was no air either, just stone. There was stone and woman stone. The stone also looked at the woman, looked. Both of them between, one thing passed. But what happened? They knew a name. The name was in the air, was hanging, but with the sound, it wasn't said, it was just with thought. Thought, woman, it was inside. The thought was in the stone, were in. Both was merging, name was being completed. Sixth letter came. E. Now on his forehead, letters was ØDARNEL, but still was missing. One letter more, it was necessary, but that letter, it wasn't coming. Because the last letter was the stone, it was inside. The last letter is heart, it was on the stone. The heart stone, the last letter, because the last letter was alive. The last letter is a child. The last letter is a wolf. The last letter was he was God. But that God was sleeping. He had to wake up. It was necessary. But waking up for one name needed before completion. God wouldn't wake up.
Woman waited, but now to wait, it was tiring, because time had stopped. Time was the stone around was turning, but inside, the woman was not entering. Of time outside remained, but his body still, he was there. His body was set in stone, was tied. The stone was attached to the body were in. Both each other, it was past. It was difficult for them to leave. For them to leave, one name, it was necessary, but the name was not completed. A while later, woman his head, he lowered his eyes, closed. And from inside, like this he said, I'm ready, but you ready, you are not. I will wait, because I won't forget. I won't let you be forgotten. With you together, I will sleep, but the dream I won't see, because dream, when you wake up, ends. Mine is nothing, it won't end. And at that moment, the seventh letter appeared, but on his forehead, it wasn't, it was in his heart. L, it was the letter. Now name was completed. ØDARNEL. But the name still, it wasn't said, it was just the name was felt in his heart. It was ringing. Name stone inside was burning. Name, God, was waking up. But waking up time would take. Wake up for one dream, it was necessary. The dream is now would begin. Woman his head, he raised his eyes, opened. But now in the cave, it wasn't. Another one was on the ground. Another one, it was at another time. One, it was the body. But it was the same spirit. It was the same name. It was longing. A dream. It had begun. But the dream, it wasn't. Because dream, when you wake up, this would end. This never happened. It wouldn't end. Shadow, the forest beyond. Dream. Episode 6. When you open your eyes, you found yourself on a rocky seashore. The stones were round. The sea was silent. Wave there was no water face straight, just like unbroken one mirror. It was like in the sky. And the sea at the bottom in two divided 1 month was shining. Both were the same in size. Both were equal, was bright. Which one real is he couldn't figure it out. Maybe both were real. Maybe both of them were alone. On the beach, small one-child stone was beating, but stones does not sink in water on stands and were listed. Child naked with feet, this stone your way on walking behind, not looking, one to a target, true, was advancing. Woman to the child, true walked, feet wet to the stones as you press, coolness feels, but the child wasn't cold. Stopped, turned, his eyes empty, deep, and it was grey. His hand opened it. In his palm, the last letter remained, bright, transparent one, drop, stone, not tears. It was like, the woman took that drop. When you get it, child smiled and back, tears were withdrawn. To your skin when it touches, the seventh letter to your heart settled. L, name it was all right now. ØDARNEL. However name still voice was not said, only in your heart ringing with stone uniting, with the sea two half uniting, silent one bridge was drying. Moon pieces, each other to approach started, water slightly moved, dream deepening, reality ashore, true, was rising. Woman, my name as you throw stone way expanding, behind coast was fading. Child his smile protecting, back withdrawn, body water above standing, to the stones, mixed stones child's its place took. Woman moved forward, his feet under water cold mosque trembled. The sky, month part of, slowly west slipping, the sea at the bottom part of, whereas was rising, two will meet at the point. The sea full in the middle, water fold was doing. Fold grew round, one passage occurred. The passage around, pine like flat inside, it was dark. Woman stopped, in the palm of your hand tears drop glowed. Its warmth to your skin, he is ashamed of his name last letter to your heart was nailing. The name ØDARNEL on your chest rang out, his voice without removing, with his lips, 40 annual with his breath said, ØDARNEL. Voice with waves together dispersed, the passage coast trembled, the water surface opened. 2-month part of met, the light, the sea in the middle, white, 1 column in rows. Woman stone the road to the end, came to your feet under last stone, to the water sank. Back only one my name remained. Deep breath took, his eyes without closing inside entry. Passage him slowly acceptance made. Light your body by scraping, behind took water while closing, behind stone path dissolved, no, it was not. The shoreline back remained. Air, stone, moon and sea quietly again, its place took. Light column inside where the time was stationary, neither forward, what back was flowing. Woman on foot stands, in the palm of your hand tears drop slowly was getting colder. Brightness, your eyes was not dazzling, on the contrary gap clearly the name ØDARNEL was showing, on your chest heavy ringing, with every beat, space a little more was narrowing. The light walls shaky, 1 pine it was like, outside 2 to the piece divided month, now was integrated, and only 1 silver disc in was standing. My name through, ground didn't feel it. Underneath stone, soil or water there was no. Just light, there was light, pressure resistance showing soft, 1 surface, woman as we walk, light moving behind him closing, in front of again, was opening. He walked, his breath orderly, steps heavy, look, it was fixed. Then light thinned, color broken, gray turned. In front of him, large, flat 1 stone plate appeared. Plate round to the lines had edges was worn out. On only 1 sign there was, wolf head, mouth closed. Woman, he stopped, his palm opened, tears drop now was glassy, cold and hard. Stone the plate in the middle, curd your head on the forehead, placed. The drop stuck, without melting inside filtered. Sheet trembled, grey light through wave dahlia, while spreading surface opened, slowly above got up. Underneath steps jeered, steps down into the darkness true, the woman was coming down. Hesitation without descended, each step, behind disappearing, air increasingly was cooling down. Downstairs light there was no, but darkness is also complete, it didn't count. Stone walls own among them, pale 1 glare was carrying. Steps ended, in front of wide 1 in the hall, round 1 swimming pool there was, a pool inside liquid, there was no place, soft, with broken mirrors covered, 1 sand had taken. Sand in the middle, stone 1 bed was standing, the bed above, small 1 child was lying, feet naked, hair sand color, eyes closed. Child's the name ØDARNEL on his chest were engraved, letters pale, almost be erased was about to. Woman next sat down. The child your hand in your palm took, fingers it was cold and thin. The child deep 1 breath took, his eyes didn't open, but lips moved. Voice there was no, but meaning, it was clear. The name tell me, sleep, let it end. Woman his head bowed, his forehead child's on the forehead he pressed on. From within, nothing, sound without removing the name completed, ØDARNEL. Noun stone bed into retreated, sand sparkled, broken mirrors merged, the pool base flattened. The child on your chest, letters shone, then slowly disappeared. The body relaxed, the breath edited, eyes opened. His eyes' color there was no, in the sea 2 half-uniting month was shining.
Woman his head raised. Child smiled. Smile,
Stone on the walls echoed in the hall. Lois' light strengthened. Ceiling opened from above, only one drop this stripped. Drop, pool in the middle fell. Sand, wet mirrors again, broken. Child, stand up, stood up. Raised his hand to the woman, handed it. Woman held. His fingers each other when the name ØDARNEL is mentioned, of the two in the palm of your hand, letters combined. Now from outside was not read. Only among them was ringing. The hall walls slowly opened up. In front of them, long, curved, one passage appeared. The passage, finally, pale, one light. The child trembled. One my name through, woman with him together, walked. Name, okay, sleep, end, had reached. Passage as it narrows, weather softened. Stone walls among blowing heat, old 1 January ashes, smell was carrying. Woman and child sideways, they were walking. Their feet on the ground, thin in the sand, fence. The child was not taking it off. The name ØDARNEL on the palm of his hand, now from outside it was not visible, but with every step, 2 heart between equal, at intervals, was ringing. The passage at the end pale light, as we grow up, walls opened in front of them, wide, round, one room came out. The room ceiling did not exist. Instead, with stars covered, one night stood. Stars' movement does not work. Fixed, it was shining like 1,000 years before stopped one was the sky. The room in the middle, low, stone, one podium there was. On it, old, faded blue one material was standing. The fabric on only one object. Stone carved curd head, mouth light December. Wolf's head, eyelash pits was empty, but through pale one light was leaking. Child non-stop to the podium approached. Woman one my name back remained. Child curd his head, took two with his hand, lifted. Light, suddenly strengthened. Ceiling covering stars, trembled, each other behind to fade it began. Every star that went out, the room on its walls, resonant, deep one silence was leaving. Woman, your breath caught. Child curd his head to your chest pressed. The name ØDARNEL, with stones united, light child's to your body flowed. Move, coldness around spread. At that moment, child's hair color darkened, shoulders expanded, length extended. Child was not growing. In his body, time back was turning. His eyes gap, its place, clear to blue left. In the sea, 2 half uniting moon was shining. Child curd his head lifted, his lips moved. Sound? There was no, but meaning was clear. Instead of a name, come, door. Let it be separated. Woman to the podium approached. The wolf head in your palm took. Stern weight on your shoulders collapsed, but could carry. Because weight, now from outside, not from inside, the name ØDARNEL was coming to his bone was processed. Woman curd his head, the podium full in the middle placed. Stone with stone united. Between them, thin one light ring the circle grew, the podium wrapped, then room to the base landed. Base crackled, the sand slightly moved. In the middle, the wolf your head around, slowly rotating one ghosting appeared. Shadow was turning, but with each turn, on the walls, old signs were shining. Signs north, to your tongue, didn't look like. More softer, more, it was old. Like the wind by was engraved. Woman recognized signs because same signs, childhood, in your dreams opposite took out. Shadow to return when completed, signs united. In the middle, wolf, your head in front of you, pale one door appeared. The door was filled with light. Not from silence. Silence like that. It was intense, that ears was humming. Child to the door approached, his hand extended, but the door didn't push, just waited. Woman next came. Child his head bowed. Woman your hand kept. Both together to the door they looked. The door had the name ØDARNEL, but the name was made of letters, not from breaths consisted of. The door open for only one thing supposed to together, breath, take. Woman and child, deep breath they took. Silence the door was split, was interrupted. Behind long, low corridor, the walls were stretching. It was dark, but on the ground, kneeling level, pale, one light ring was advancing. Ring, step, my name in front of them was illuminating. Woman and child, together they walked. With every step, darkness back remains, light in front of them was opening. Corridor end, when it ends, in front of them, stone, one bridge appeared. The bridge is endless, vast, one of space over, was passing under. Place, there was no sky, there was no. Just bridge, there was a bridge, on the tip, pale, one light. The light trembled, the name ÖDARNEL was carrying, but the name is now one name, it wasn't. The name it was a journey. The journey is now was beginning. The bridge stone was hot, feet to their souls, sticky heat to the bone it works, steps was aggravating. Below, space does not move, up above, no light, it didn't shine. It just the bridge on the edges, walking pale, increasingly to the public, thin out stone, their turns was illuminating. Woman ahead, child immediately behind, was walking. Both shadow, there was no, because shadow will give, there was no light either. Only the name ÖDARNEL there was on every stone when pressed, rhythmic, one with a shot, rang out. ÖDARNEL, ÖDARNEL. Face my name later, bridge narrowed, shoulders stone to the walls, it's worth it. Clothes, fabric, stone by rubbing, buzzing, the narrowness of the air, its weight increases. Breath was squeezing. Child stopped. His hand extended, the woman palm of your hand held. Fingers, when combined, shortness softened. Stones between, thin one light line appeared. The light of the bridge's end sign was doing. There, in the void, in the middle, round one platform was standing. The platform above, no thing, there was no, but on the edges, fingers trace, in size holes, there were pits, the name ÖDARNEL, letters was carrying, every hole, a letter, it was in the form of. Woman and child to the platform reached, platform trembled, stone, whole its weight, your feet under was collecting. Woman before, child raised, child platform, in the middle sat down, knees tied. Then woman self above pulled, two together, platform full in the middle. They sat in the pits, glittered, the letters of the stone through rising, pale with light combined. light, platform in the middle, small, one ring formed. Return to the people started. With each turn, the platform under, deep, one buzzing was rising. The hum of the void in the darkness echoing, stone texture was shaking. Child, his head bowed, his forehead woman's on the forehead leaned. Both together breath they took, their breath in the ring united. The ring accelerated, the stone, the platform around. Suddenly the platform cracked. Under, broken, one sound rose. Instead of a name came to the door, the sound was parted. Through was coming, but stone, own your voice. The voice was not using the name ØDARNEL. It was the voice itself. The journey, the end, advert was doing. But last, new, one, it was the beginning. Platform trembled. The stone, slowly above, got up. The gap is on the platform, under, opened. Depth, with light, was filling up. Light, its name was carrying. Name, journey, was carrying. The journey now, end, was melting. But end to rise, to wake up, it wasn't, because dream, when you wake up, this would end. This never happened. It wouldn't end.
Platform with light. As it was covered, stones melting started. But heat there was no, only busy one brightness. Woman and child's feet into the void. It was worth it. Platform now, them, they do not carry platform was carrying. Below, light above true rose. Stones swallowed the name, ØDARNEL, to pieces separated. Letters in the air scattered, each pale one star like a round laid. Name as they disperse, space narrowed, walls appeared, but walls metal, stone or soil, it wasn't. Because of the silence, they were knitted. Women, your hand extended, palm, silence, pierced fingers among, lost space in your ears, buzzing left. Child, his head raised, in his eyes, blue light now still was not in the sea too, half merges, then again was leaving. Light column slowly inward collapsed, silence walls each other approached, behind just their breath rhythm remained. Woman and child on foot they were standing, their feet under, now no thing there was no, but they were not falling. The name, ØDARNEL, letters around them slowly turns, with every turn a little more shrinking. Eventually, only one at the point were coming together. That point, the chest full, was in the middle, woman with child's between them, which both can touch, but none of them, he can't hold on, one on the ground was shining. Woman, deep breath took. Child, same breath gave. Both of them breath when combined, point expanded, pale one ring created. From within the ring, last light, silence broke. A lot from far away one from the old days buzzing rose. The hum of stone, earth, moon and your dream was its voice. But all suddenly, not all, behind one after the other, without interference, the same at the moment. Woman, your ears closed. Child, your eyes closed. Silence back returned. But this silence, emptiness it wasn't. This silence, saturation it was like. Instead of a name had arrived, the journey was completed. Glare slowly faded. The ring narrowed to a point. Transformed, point disappeared. The name, ØDARNEL, now outside, it wasn't there. It was inside. The woman was inside.
the child was in. Both of them between, but same in time she was beyond both. Woman, your eyes opened, child, your eyes opened. Mutual they looked, and their eyes light now were the same. Inside them space was closed, but the gut while closing, its place one peace had taken. Peace was motionless, peace was eternal. Around them silence walls solved, location appeared. Soft, warm, it was earth. The sky appeared. It was calm, clear, starry. The moon was full, single, steady. The sea was far away, but voice, the wind was coming, was not blowing, but smell, it was heard. Woman, his head bowed, child, his head bowed. Both together they sat down on the ground. They sat down, they held their hands each other, they put their eyes, they closed it. Breath, they took breath, they gave, and they slept. But they slept, it wasn't. This is because dream, when you wake up, this would end. This never happened. It wouldn't end.